And so let me just give you two stories. And there are multiple stories that could be used about migration. But the first story is Abram, right? I mean, we can look at Abram, who was basically a God appeared to him. We know that in Genesis 12, I think verse 1, at 75 years old, I believe he was, God appeared to him and promised him that if he left this country, his land to a new land that God would show him, he would basically make of him a people that would last for generations. For a man who's 75 years old, who's comfortable where he is, who's happy to be where he is, to be told that he should migrate to a new country, and trust God in the process so that he may start a new people through him, had to have been a scary thing. And yet he did. And really at the very foundation of the Old Testament, one of the early foundations of the Old Testament, this story really set into play a narrative, of salvation history, that led to the New Testament and everything in between. Um, when Abraham was Abram, as you all know, set off into this new land and he set up shop basically. He and his wife were past childbearing age, and there was, a sense that this couldn't happen. And yet, when he was one day, three strangers appeared before him at the edge of the town or at the edge of his encampment. And immediately Abraham went up to them and he said, "Come, come, eat with us. Enjoy, sort of, take time to rest, to relax. It's hot, it's uncomfortable. We will feed you. We will, take care of you. We will show you hospitality." And this is the story where he does this, and then at the end of this hospitality period, the three strangers, or one of the strangers, tells Sarah that she will give birth within a year. By this time next year, she will have a child. Um, this notion of hospitality really appearing early in Scripture is a very important theme that sort of appears and reappears throughout. And in Hebrews 13, we're told that, we need to be careful when we encounter strangers and how we encounter strangers because we may be entertaining angels unaware. And so these kind of two stories, kind of this sort of this movement is important. This movement of, into a new land where God promises he will set people up, for generations to come, a new people for generations to come. And Abraham's decision to entertain angels unaware, to show hospitality, is important for a number of reasons, obviously. But one thing that I want to highlight is the importance of individual choice. I mean, presumably, Abraham didn't have to leave to this new country. He could have said no, potentially, it seems. He had the free will to say, God, I'm very comfortable where I am in my land. I'm an old man. I don't want to migrate. I don't want to start new, and I want to stay here. Now, what would have happened had that happened? I have no idea. These sort of counterfactuals are impossible to answer. Um, but he trusted God and he migrated to a new land. His willingness to show hospitality was another decision, maybe deeply rooted in the culture of his time and expected of him, but one that he didn't. He could have been hot and he could have had a long day at work and he could have said, "I don't want to do this." And yet he did it. And lo and behold, he's entertaining angels unaware. So, I mean, what this shows, I think, is that when we are sort of living our lives and we're engaging strangers, we're engaging immigrants, how we approach them, the individual decisions that we make in relationship to them have an impact that is often outsized, an impact that we don't necessarily realize how big it will be and how important it is and how earth-shattering it could be. It could be small, but it could be significant. And so the notion of individual choice, I think, is a very important kind of notion as we kind of sort of think about, how do we engage migrants in their communities?